The biggest travel advantage people over 55 don't realize they have. Travel advice online is obsessed with speed, faster boarding, faster security, faster connections, faster hacks that promise you'll beat the system if you just move like you're late to your own wedding. But here's what frequent travelers quietly learn, and what a lot of people over 55 already have without realizing it. Speed is not the real advantage anymore. Modern travel is too complex, too crowded, and too fragile for speed to be the main edge. The biggest advantage is judgment. The ability to read the situation early, choose the least risky path, and stay calm enough to make good decisions when everyone else is reacting emotionally. That advantage is more common in travelers over 55 because it's built from experience, not athleticism. Welcome to Passport Pointers, where we turn travel confusion into clarity and explain the systems airlines never put on the sign. Today we're breaking down the biggest travel advantage people over 55 don't realize they have, and how to lean into it so your trips feel smoother without needing perfect conditions. The advantage is pattern literacy. The real difference between a stressful trip and a smooth one usually isn't luck. It's whether you recognize the pattern early. People over 55 have lived through more versions of the plan. You've seen what actually happens when a connection is technically enough time, a gate area is already crowded, a flight is delayed but should still make up time, or an airline says, "Don't worry, we'll take care of you." You've seen the gap between the promise and the reality. That history creates pattern literacy, an internal sense for when something is fragile. It's the ability to look at a situation and think, this is the part where it usually goes sideways, before it goes sideways. You can't buy that. You can't upgrade into it. You only get it by paying attention over time. Why pattern literacy beats travel hacks. Most travel hacks assume ideal conditions. They work when the system behaves, but the system doesn't always behave. Pattern literacy works when the system is messy. It helps you avoid fragile sequences, like booking a tight connection on the last flight of the night, trusting a short line that's actually stalled, or making plans that require multiple things to go right in the right order. You don't need a hack to beat chaos, you need early recognition. Older travelers often appear calm, not because they're carefree, but because they're already running the scenario tree in their head. They're not panicking because they've seen this movie before. The advantage is risk triage. Younger travelers often treat all problems as equally urgent. That creates unnecessary stress. One of the biggest strengths people over 55 develop is risk triage, knowing what matters now, what can wait, and what is just noise. Example: a gate change is real urgency. An upgrade offer is noise. A boarding time adjustment matters. A marketing email doesn't. A weather system in your connection city matters. A limited time bundle doesn't. This sounds obvious, but in the airport, surrounded by screens, announcements, and crowds, it's easy to get pulled into the wrong urgency. Older travelers are more likely to filter the noise and focus on the one or two variables that actually decide whether the day stays smooth. That is a massive advantage in an environment designed to scatter your attention. Why older travelers don't fall for false savings. Another underrated edge is a lower tolerance for false savings. False savings are choices that look smart in the moment and cost you later. Saving $40 but adding a second stop, saving 20 minutes but increasing risk, saving a little money but turning the day into a long chain of maybe. A lot of travelers learn this the hard way. People over 55 often learn it earlier and stop repeating it. They don't just ask, is this cheaper? They ask, what does this choice require from me if the day gets messy? That question is pure wisdom, and it's exactly how you avoid travel days that feel like a wrestling match. Quick question for the comments. When you travel, do you trust the deal, or do you trust your gut about how the day will actually play out? And what's one false saving you learned to stop chasing? Drop it below. We read them, and your answers help shape what we break down next. The advantage is emotional regulation. Here's something the travel industry never says, but every gate agent knows. The calm traveler gets more options. Not because the system is fair, but because humans respond better to clarity than chaos. When disruptions happen, the environment becomes emotionally contagious. People get loud. They get frantic. They demand answers that don't exist yet. They try to force certainty out of a situation that isn't certain. Travelers over 55 often have a stronger emotional anchor. Not always, but often. Life experience builds a kind of steadiness that shows up in small ways. Speaking clearly instead of rushing. Asking one good question instead of 10 anxious ones. Listening for what's actually being said. And separating frustration from action. That steadiness protects your judgment. And judgment is what creates better outcomes. To be clear, emotional regulation is not being passive, it's staying sharp. The advantage is social skill with systems. There's a difference between arguing with the system and navigating it. A lot of people treat customer service like a courtroom. They build a case. They demand justice. They escalate instantly. Experienced travelers know something simpler. Systems respond to inputs. You get better results by choosing the right input. People over 55 are often better at this because they've interacted with more bureaucracies over their lifetime. Insurance, banking, healthcare, government agencies, employers. They've learned how to communicate with a process. They know how to state the problem in one sentence, offer the key details without rambling, ask for a specific next step, and keep the interaction cooperative. That's not being nice, that's being effective. And in disruption situations, when time, patience, and staff are limited, effective communication can be the difference between getting rebooked and getting stuck. The advantage is decision patience. Airports create artificial urgency. Screens flash final boarding when it's not actually final. People crowd the gate early because they're afraid of losing bin space. Announcements repeat warnings that keep everyone tense. The environment pushes you to make quick choices. Older travelers are more likely to pause at the right moments. They don't rush into the first line. They don't change plans the second something looks slightly off. They wait long enough to confirm the real situation before committing. That patience avoids expensive mistakes, leaving a gate area too early and missing an update, switching to a different line that looks shorter but is slower, or rebooking too quickly into a worse option because stress demanded a decision. In modern travel, patience preserves optionality. Optionality is power. The advantage is knowing what normal looks like. A lot of travel stress comes from not knowing what's normal. Is it normal that boarding hasn't started? Is it normal that the gate agent hasn't arrived? Is it normal that the plane is still at the gate? Is it normal that the app shows one thing and the screen shows another? When you don't know what's normal, your brain treats everything as a possible threat. You burn energy monitoring and guessing. People over 55 are more likely to recognize normal patterns, when to expect a gate change, when a delay is likely to grow, when the crew timing suggests an operational issue, or when a situation is just routine slowness.
This doesn't make you psychic. It just makes you less surprised, and less surprise equals less stress.
The advantage is a different relationship with proving something. A lot of younger travelers move through airports like they're trying to win. They sprint to show they can. They take the tight connection to prove they're efficient. They refuse the safer option because it feels like giving up. After 55, many travelers stop needing to prove anything to the travel system. That's a gift. When you're not performing, you can choose the option that actually serves you. You can choose the route that reduces risk. You can choose the plan that leaves room for reality. And that's how trips become smoother, even when the industry doesn't change. The advantage is contract awareness. One of the biggest hidden skills older travelers develop is understanding that travel is a bundle of agreements, not a single promise. Tickets have conditions, fares have restrictions, connections have responsibility boundaries. Baggage has rules. Changes have deadlines. Younger travelers often assume the system will figure it out if something changes. Older travelers are more likely to read the fine print with a practical eye, not obsessively, strategically. They know where the trip can become non-refundable. They know when basic means fewer options. They know the difference between what the airline suggests and what the ticket actually allows. That contract awareness keeps you from being surprised later, which is one of the biggest sources of travel stress. The advantage is knowing when to stop chasing perfect. A common trap in travel is perfection chasing, trying to force the day back into the original plan after reality has changed. Experienced travelers, often those over 55, recognize when the goal should shift from perfect to workable. They don't waste emotional energy insisting that the timeline should still happen. They pivot faster at the mindset level, which makes the logistics easier. This is why they often look like they're handling it better. They are. They're not fighting the weather, the schedule, or the aircraft rotation. They're adapting to it. The advantage is strategic flexibility. Flexibility isn't just being okay with change. It's choosing options that keep your future choices open. Older travelers are more likely to value flexibility as a resource. They'll choose the plan that leaves them multiple outs. They'll avoid itineraries that lock them into one fragile sequence. They'll recognize when a slightly different routing, time window, or airline choice gives them a safer set of fallbacks. That's not being indecisive. That's building resilience into the trip. The advantage is crowd psychology. Airports are not only logistical systems, they're emotional ecosystems. Crowds create pressure. Pressure creates irrational behavior, and irrational behavior creates delays. Travelers over 55 often have better crowd instincts. They notice when people are clustering for no reason. They recognize when a gate area is about to become chaotic. They position themselves so they're not trapped inside the crowd's worst behavior. They don't stand in the middle of a walkway reading a screen like it's a museum exhibit. They step to the side. They protect their space. They make it easier for others to move, which ironically makes it easier for them too. Knowing how crowds behave is a real advantage in modern travel because crowds are bigger and patience is thinner. The advantage is knowing your own tempo. This is not about physical limitation, it's about self-knowledge. A lot of travel problems come from choosing plans that don't match your personal tempo, how you like to move, decide, and transition between steps. People over 55 often know their tempo better. They know what kind of day makes them feel calm and what kind of day makes them feel rushed and irritated. That self-knowledge leads to better choices, not what looks impressive, but what actually works for me. And that is the foundation of consistently good travel. How to turn this advantage into a real strategy. If you're over 55, the biggest shift is this. Stop measuring your travel success by speed and start measuring it by outcome. Outcome means, did the day stay manageable? Did you keep your options open? Did you avoid fragile sequences? Did you respond instead of react? Here are a few ways to lean into your advantage without turning it into a checklist. First, trust your pattern recognition. If an itinerary feels like it requires perfect timing, that's not being dramatic. That's your experience doing its job. Second, practice risk triage. When something changes, ask, what is the single variable that could actually break my day? Focus on that. Ignore the noise. Third, use your social skill with systems. Speak clearly, ask for the next step, and keep the conversation productive. Your goal is not to vent. Your goal is to solve. Fourth, choose decision patience. Pause just long enough to confirm the real situation before you commit to a new plan. Finally, own the fact that judgment is the advantage. Speed is optional. Judgment is durable. Why this advantage matters more in 2026 and beyond. The travel system isn't getting simpler. It's getting more automated, more crowded, and more dependent on passengers managing their own decisions. That means the people who thrive won't be the ones who move fastest. They'll be the ones who can read patterns, manage emotion, and make smart choices under uncertainty. That is exactly what experienced travelers do well. And if you're over 55, you may already have the biggest advantage in travel. You just haven't been calling it that. If you want another Passport Pointers breakdown that explains how to travel smarter, not just faster, watch the next video that's popping up on your screen right now. Thanks for watching Passport Pointers, and I'll see you in the next video.